You ever feel like the road's trying to tell you something? Not with signs or GPS directions, but with that weird kind of silence that sinks into your bones when you're the only one out there at 3 in the morning? I've been driven long. Haul for close to 2 decades, crossed this country more times than I can count, and I thought I'd seen it all: drunk drivers, freak storms, even a few weird folks wandering near truck stops in the middle of nowhere. But nothing ever stuck with me like what happened on that stretch of blacktop outside Nevada. That night changed me. And I ain't the kind of man to scare easy. I'd just dropped a refrigerated load in Salt Lake City and was running empty, back toward Bakersfield. Dispatch said if I could push through overnight, they'd get me back-to-back loads with some decent pay. Sounded good at the time. I had my coffee, my country mix on low, and about 8 hours of straight road ahead. Route was clear, skies were cold, but clean. But around 2:30 a.m., somewhere south of Ely, my GPS glitched. Nothing major, just froze. For a second, then the screen flickered, and I swear it showed a road that wasn't there before. No name, no number, just a sidewinder cutting sharp to the left like a shortcut through the desert. Now, I ain't usually one to trust detours, but the map rerouted itself, blinked twice, then cleared up like nothing happened. It felt wrong, though, like the system was trying to hide the hiccup. I told myself maybe the satellites were just being fussy in the hills. But then I noticed the clock on my dash. It had been 2:47 for a while. Too long enough for me to notice I hadn't heard the next track on my playlist. Long enough for the road to start feeling unfamiliar. That's when it started, the feeling, like I wasn't driven alone anymore. Not that someone was in the truck with me, but more like the road itself was aware, like it had eyes. I turned the music off, just static. The CB crackled even, though I hadn't touched it. And then the headlights caught something in the distance, just for a second. Could have been a coyote, could have been nothing. But the way it moved? Tall, fast, too fast. And it darted just out of sight, past a bent road sign I don't remember ever passing before. It was only then I realized what time it was. Still, 2:47 a.m., that clock hadn't moved a damn second. And whatever was waiting for me out there, it knew it was just getting started. I told myself it was just fatigue playing tricks on me. I mean, I'd been rolling since late afternoon. Hadn't eaten nothing but a bag of pretzels and a gas station coffee so strong it could strip paint. But the longer I stared at that frozen clock 2:47, the more it felt like time itself was holding its breath. Like the world had paused, but I hadn't. The sky above was too dark, pitch black, no stars. That ain't normal out in the Nevada desert. Usually, even on the loneliest nights, the stars were so bright they looked close enough to reach. But this sky? It was empty. Like someone took a giant black sheet and pinned it up above the earth. Then I noticed the road signs again. One of 'em had fallen over, bent in the middle like someone big had stepped on it. Another had no writing on it at all, just a blank green board hanging by rusted bolts, swinging slow in the wind that I couldn't hear. I know that don't make sense, but that's what it was. The trees off to the right, if you could even call them trees, looked like dead telephone poles wrapped in spider webs. They didn't sway. They didn't move. They just stood there like they were listening. I gripped the wheel tighter, trying not to let my nerves get the better of me. Truck was still humming, engine smooth, gauges normal. Nothing mechanical was wrong, but the world around me? Something had shifted. It was like driven through a painting that someone forgot to finish. I reached over and tapped the radio knob, flipping through the static. Every station was dead. Not even the late-night preachers or the trucker chat line out of Vegas. Just hiss. At one point, I swear I heard something breathing behind the static, slow, steady, deep, like a sleeping bear under a blanket. I turned it off. The silence. Afterward was louder than any noise. Then came the knock. 3 taps. Right behind my seat, on the back wall of the sleeper cab. Not frantic, not loud, just patient. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. My foot eased off the gas, not all the way, but enough for the truck to slow a bit. I didn't turn around. Every part of me wanted to. Every instinct, every bit of curiosity screamed. at me to whip my head around and see who or what was back there, but I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe it was the way those knocks sounded too calm, too certain. Like whoever was knocking knew I'd hear it, knew I was alone. Knew I couldn't pretend otherwise. That's when I realized I wasn't driven on the route anymore. The mile markers were gone, the lines on the road had faded. And I swear the asphalt had turned darker, almost wet, though it hadn't rained in days. Whatever this place was, I wasn't supposed to be in it. And something was waiting for me to stop, or to look back. Or to listen again. I don't remember macking any turns. That's what still eats at me. I was driven straight one long stretch of road. No exits, no rumps, no intersections. But suddenly the road beneath me was different, narrower. The texture changed. You ever notice that hum beneath your wheels, that low, rhythmic rumble of tires against real asphalt? It's like background music for us truckers, so normal you don't think about it until it's gone. And it was gone. Replaced by a softer sound, almost plush, like I was driven over fabric or padded ground. I checked the mirrors again out of reflex. Even though I'd promised myself I wouldn't, they were covered. Taped up like I always do after midnight on long solo runs on. Old superstition I picked up from a guy named Dallas, who swore he saw his own reflection blink when he hadn't, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was I could still feel something watching. That same pressure in the back of my neck, like breath without sound, heat without body. Then the CB crackled. I hadn't touched it. Still had the mic hanging loosely on its clip. Volume was low, almost off. But the channel changed on its own. Static at first, then a whisper, just one word. Driver. It wasn't like a voice I'd ever heard before, not Southern. Not Northern, not even human if I'm being honest. It dragged the syllables, stretched them out like taffy until they sounded wrong. But somehow, it still knew how to say it in a way that made me feel known. It didn't ask where I was. It didn't tell me to stop. It just said my job title like it was reading it off a tombstone. Driver, I didn't reply, didn't breathe. And then the CB went silent, just cut out. I reached down, unplugged the whole unit just to be sure. The cab filled with that weird air again, dead and too still, like the inside of a sealed room. My headlights caught movement ahead. Not an animal this time, not fast, not blur, standing dead center in the road. A shape, tall, thin, almost too thin. Like the space it took up had been stretched. No face. No clothes I could make out. Just this pale silhouette, like it was carved out of the darkness. It didn't flinch, didn't react. It just stood there, arms slack at its sides, head tilted. Ever so slightly to the left, like it was listening for something inside me. My hands went ice cold. I hit the air horn hard, long, loud. Nothing. It didn't even blink. I didn't slow down either. I pressed the gas. Hard, if that thing wanted to test me. It was about to learn I don't play games with shadows. But just as I closed the distance, maybe 20 feet out, it vanished, clean, gone, like it had stepped backward into the night itself. No puff of dust, no flash, no sound, just gone. And the second it disappeared, my dashboard clock ticked forward for the first time in over an hour. 2:48 a.m. When that clock ticked forward to 2:48, I thought for a second maybe the spell was broken, like I'd pushed through whatever that thing was, like maybe I'd beaten it. But that relief didn't even last a full breath. Because right after the clock moved, my headlights picked up something else ahead. Not a figure this time, a sign. An old wooden highway marker just off the shoulder, bent at the base, slanted like it had been sitting out there, rot for years. I could barely read it until I rolled past slow enough. It wasn't a town name, it wasn't a speed limit. It just said one word, all caps, carved into the wood like someone did it with a blade. Out. No arrows, no distance. Just that word. I felt my throat tighten, like my own name had been written there instead. I looked to the GPS, just instinct again, though the screen was still black. But now, the static map was glowing faint, like the unit had booted itself back up. And it showed a road ahead that wasn't there before. Long, straight, no route number, no towns on either side. Just a thread of gray running through a blank stretch of land that should have been empty desert. The truck started vibrating. different. Not rough, not like a blown tire or a loose panel, more like the whole frame was humming, low and deep, like it was responding to the road. I could feel it in my spine. That's when the lights flickered. First the dash, then the overheads. Just a pulse, like a heartbeat, and then steady again. I told myself, keep going, eyes forward. But my curiosity, it's always been my curse. I slowed, just a bit. Not enough to stop, but enough to let the fear creep in and take its seat beside me. My brights caught movement again, only this time. It wasn't out in the road, it was behind the guardrail. Dozens of shapes, slender, too still, lined up along the edge of the asphalt like fence posts. No eyes, no faces, but I knew they were looking right at me. And worse, they were leaning in, all at the same angle, like they were being pulled toward the cab. I gritted my teeth, clenched the wheel. My knuckles went white. I hit the gas. Again. The truck surged forward, and as I passed those things, I swear I heard a voice whisper through the cab so soft I nearly missed it. It said, "You're on the road now. That's it. Not a road. Not Route 50 or 93. The road." And I finally understood what it meant. This wasn't a place you drive through. This was a place that drove through you. After I passed those things, those still, staring shapes by the rail, I stopped seeing any signs of civilization. No rest stops, no billboards, no fences, no power lines. Just dark hills rising in the distance like frozen waves, and that stretch of endless blacktop beneath me that felt more like a tongue than a road. I glanced down again. 2:49 a.m. That clock was moving now, but barely. 1 minute felt like 20. My hands were shaking and not from cold. And the strangest part was, I still hadn't hit another vehicle in over an hour. Not one set of headlights. Not even tail lights way off in the distance. I was driven the only truck on a road that wasn't supposed to exist, following a GPS that had drawn a path from nowhere to nowhere else. The road curved just slightly. Then, and in my headlights, I saw a forked two identical paths splitting ahead. No signs, no barriers. Just a faint wooden post between them with something hanging off a nail. I slowed just enough to make it out. It was a key. Old brass thing, swinging slow in the breeze that didn't touch anything else, and beneath it, a scrap of cloth, maybe burlap, nailed to the post with one word smeared across it in what looked like oil or tar. Decide. My hands stayed. Locked on the wheel, and for a moment I didn't know what I was even choosing, left or right, toward what. But it wasn't about the direction. It was about whether I chose at all. Like the road was testing if I could think for myself or if I was already too far gone, just drifting where it wanted. I took the right fork. No reason, no logic. Just gut, but almost instantly I felt the temperature drop. Cold seeped in through the vents like breath from a freezer. My breath started fogging up the windshield even with the heat cranking. I reached to wipe it and froze mid-motion. In the glass I saw a figure sitting in the passenger seat. Not beside me, not in the flesh, just a faint reflection. A shape, head tilted, shoulders too narrow, arms too long. I didn't dare look to my right. I kept my eyes straight, and in the fogged glass that reflection didn't blink. Didn't move, just sat there, watching me. I started muttering out loud like an old fool, trying to stay anchored. Ain't real. Just stress. Just my brain messing with me. But deep down, I knew that thing was watching not with eyes, but with intent. It was like the road had sent something in to study me, see what I'd do, see if I'd look, and I damn near did. My neck tensed like a rubber band stretched. To snap, but I remembered Dallas's rule, don't ever turn. Don't ever give it the satisfaction of knowing you saw it. That's when I realized I wasn't just on the road now. I was part of it. I drove with that reflection sitting beside me for damn near 5 miles. Maybe more. It's hard to tell when the road feels like it loops through a place that don't keep time the way we do. Every once in a while I'd see it move just slightly in the fogged glass, not shifting like a person stretching or breathing, more like it was adjusting itself to mirror me. I'd tilt my head, it would tilt the same way a beat later. Like it was learning, like it was practicing. And that's when it hit me. That thing sitting in the glass, it wasn't just watching. It was copying. like it was rehearsing for something, like it was waiting for the moment it could take over and slip in without me noticing. I turned off the interior lights, hoping the dim cabin would wash out the reflection. Didn't matter, the thing was still there, clear as day, like it was lit from within. It never blinked, never breathed. And the worst part was, I couldn't tell if it had a face. Every time I tried to make out features, it was like the fog on the windshield got thicker around its head, blurrier, as if it wanted to be seen but only on its own terms. Somewhere between mile 5 and 6 of that right fork, I heard it move. For real, I didn't see it, didn't need to. The leather on the passenger seat creaked like someone had shifted their weight, just slightly. Not enough to be dramatic, just enough to let me know, hey, I'm not just a trick of the glass anymore. My breath caught, my left hand twitched against the wheel. I could feel it in my periphery. The heaviness of presence. I started counting my breathing just to keep calm. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, hold, exhale. I didn't break rhythm. I didn't speak. I didn't look. And then the radio popped back on, loud, screaming static and distortion, like a tape chewing. Itself apart, and under that noise? A voice, no more whispers now. It was clearer, familiar, mine. The voice coming through the radio was my voice, but not quite. It was flatter. Too calm. Like someone wearing my voice like a mask. It said, "Driver, we've been waiting. You took the wrong turn. We'll help you get back." I reached down, yanked the power cord straight out of the CB. The voice kept talking. The unit was dead, but the voice kept talking. That's when I saw the reflection raise its hand and the glass pointing forward down the road. I clenched the wheel tighter. I wasn't just being watched anymore. I was being guided. And I wasn't sure if following would take me back to where I came from, or somewhere I'd never leave. The road narrowed the farther I drove. And I don't mean like a 2-lane squeezing down to one, I mean the shoulders started to vanish. The white lines faded completely, and the whole stretch of asphalt turned into a black ribbon laid out in the middle of nowhere with no barriers. No rumble strips, not even gravel. It felt like I was driven on a tightrope in the dark with the whole world falling off either side. And that reflection, my copy, my shadow, whatever it was, kept sitting there in the glass, hand raised, pointing straight ahead like it was making sure I didn't try any funny business. My foot stayed heavy on the pedal. Not because I wanted to go faster, but because every bone in my body told me that stopping was the one thing I absolutely could not do. You ever hear the hum of your tires change pitch, like the road itself is vibrant and different? That happened around the same time the smell kicked in. It was like motor oil mixed with burnt copper and wet earth. Thick, clingy, metallic. Not from the engine either. I know my rig. This was coming from the outside, like the whole landscape was breathing heat through the vents, seeping in through the doors. The lights ahead were the first thing I'd seen in a while that didn't feel completely dead. At first I thought it was another truck, headlights real low, real far off. I leaned forward, squinting, thinking maybe I'd finally caught up to someone else out here, but then I noticed the lights weren't moving, not forward, not side to side. Just hovering there in the distance like two little moons, blinking now and then in a rhythm that didn't match any vehicle I'd ever seen. I turned off my brights, waited. The lights didn't change. Just stayed there, slow blinking, like eyes getting used to the dark. And then the voice came again, but this time not from the CB. It was coming from behind the dash, deep in the mechanics. Like the whole truck had become a speaker. "Turn off your lights," it said, in that flat, almost robotic version of my voice. "They can't see you if you turn off your lights." I almost listened. I swear I almost reached for the switch. That's the danger of it. The way it talks like it already knows what you'll do next. But something deep in my gut pulled me back. Not logic. Not bravery. Just instinct. I kept the lights on. Past the point where those floating orbs should have been and found nothing there. No truck, no road sign. Just two tall wooden posts standing on either side of the road like gate markers. As soon as I passed through them, the smell vanished. The hum changed, the reflection in the window disappeared, and the clock on the dash clicked again. 2:50 a.m., but I didn't feel relief. I felt watched. Like I'd just entered their territory for real after I passed between those two wooden posts. The whole world felt wrong in a way I still can't explain, not loud, wrong, not flashy, but subtle, like someone had shifted reality a few inches to the left. You ever put your boots on the wrong feet without realizing it, and you walk around feeling off all day? It was like that, but in my bones. The sky still had no stars, no clouds, no moon, just a wall of dark above me that somehow felt heavier than air. My headlights barely reached past 30 feet now, like the road was eating the light as fast as it left the bulbs. And the hum was back. That deep, low-frequency hum that made my fillings ache and my eyes water. I tightened my grip on the wheel and kept driven, trying to think about nothing, trying not to let my mind wander too far off the lines. That's when the radio, not the CB, but the actual FM radio, long dead since I hit this stretch, flickered. Back on soft at first, crackling like an old vinyl record. A slow voice came through the speakers, not words. Just breathin', deep, rhythmic, male, maybe. Could have been me. I turned the knob, tried to kill it, nothing. No matter how far I spun that dial, the station didn't change. Just more breathin'. And then, right when I thought maybe it was just broken, just a loop or some rogue signal, second voice came through. This one was different, female, whispery, but not soft, sharp. Don't listen to him, she said. He wants the truck. You keep the truck, he can't take you? Now, I don't want to lose it over strange radio chatter. I've heard my share of weird transmissions out in the desert. But this wasn't some prank. These voices were talking like they knew me, like they'd been waiting. He's already behind you, the woman's voice said. You gave him too much attention. That's when the engine hiccuped. Just once. Not a stall, not a full drop, but a skip, like something heavy just dropped onto the back of the trailer. I didn't check the mirrors. I knew better. I knew the rules. Eyes forward, no matter what. But I felt it. Wait, like someone was climbing onto the frame from behind. The breathing on the radio got faster, more urgent. Then stopped all at once, silence, and then the man's voice returned. Still flat, still wearing my cadence like an old skin. Driver, he said, you're almost home. And I realized he wasn't trying to scare me. He was trying to comfort me. Like he thought I belonged here. Like he thought he was doing me a favor. The worst part wasn't the voice or the engine skip or even the feeling of weight behind me. It was the silence that came after. That thick, clinging, absolute silence. Like the world itself was holding its breath. Even the tires sounded wrong, like they weren't touching pavement anymore, but rolling across something hollow, like stretched leather or dry bone. I gritted my teeth and tried to focus on the road, but my eyes kept twitching toward the corner of the windshield where I'd seen that reflection before. It wasn't there now, no fog, no copy, but I knew it hadn't left. It was just bidding. It's time. And then, slow and clear, I heard the door latch. Passenger side. Not yanking, not rattling, easing, click, the kind of sound a careful hand makes when it don't want to be noticed. My heart slammed hard against my chest, and my breath caught so sharp I felt it scrape my throat. Still, I didn't turn. I didn't speak. I just kept staring straight ahead into that unnatural dark stretch of road, but I could feel it now. The cold seeping from that seat, the weight shift, the way the air thickened like an old cellar. Then something spoke beside me, not through the radio this time, not in my voice. This voice was dry, like sand dragging through a pipe, barely human, but still trying to sound like it belonged here. You didn't ask where we're going. I clenched the wheel so tight my knuckles cracked. I didn't answer. I knew better. The voice kept going. Most ask. They beg. They pray. You're quieter than the others. The cab felt smaller all of a sudden, like the walls were shrinking. The windshield looked farther away. My headlights flickered, dimmed, then snapped back on. Every instinct told me to pull over, to stop the truck and bail. But how do you jump off a road that don't exist on a map? And if I stopped, what if it didn't? The voice leaned closer. I could feel it in my ear, but there was no breath, no heat. There's only 2 places left, it said, and the way it said left made my stomach churn like it meant wrong. Ahead. Or back. I finally spoke, my voice raw and cracking. Back where? Silence. For one beat, two, and then... It chuckled. Not a laugh. Not human. Just a sound made for mocking. There's no back. Not after 3 a.m. I looked at the dash again. 2:59. The numbers flickered, glitched, and then... Locked. 3 a.m. on the dot. The lights died. The truck surged like the ground dropped out from beneath it. And everything. Changed dot the second the dash hit 3 a.m. It felt like the whole... Truck dropped 5 feet in an instant like I'd driven off a curb made of gravity itself. Everything in the cab jumped. My coffee thermos toppled. The clipboard on my dash slid down with a thud. And the trailer groaned behind me like it had suddenly gotten twice as heavy. But the strangest part wasn't the drop, it was the stillness that followed. Total black, no headlights, no dashboard glow, no marker lights reflecting in the mirrors. Just pitch dark like the truck was floating in space. I could still feel the road under me barely, but I couldn't see a damn inch of it. I didn't hit the brakes. Didn't dare. I just held the wheel steady, heart hammering, breath shallow, trying to listen for anything besides the engine, which was humming now like it was being choked by the silence. That thing beside me didn't speak again, didn't move, but I knew it was still there. Every hair on my arm stood up. My skin buzzed with the kind of energy you only feel when you know something's watching you from too close and not blinking. Then suddenly a new light flared ahead, not headlights. Not even fire. It was like a curtain of dim orange glow, rising from the horizon, real low to the ground, almost like sunrise but wrong. Too early, too dull, and it shimmered like heat off asphalt. The road beneath me reappeared, only it wasn't asphalt anymore. It looked like packed soil, dark red like blood-soaked clay, and carved into it were tracks, not just tire tracks, but hoof prints, claw marks, long, narrow gouges like something had been dragging itself forward for miles. I don't know how, but I knew I was being led now, not guided. Pulled, my hands were still on the wheel, but I don't remember steering. The truck was following a path like it had been etched into the land long before roads were even dreamed up by men. And on either side of me I saw shapes rising in the dim orange glow figures. Statues maybe, standing tall in rows like twisted mile markers. I couldn't see their faces, but every single one of them was facing the road as if watching me pass, welcoming me. Judging me, I whispered without thinking, "Where the hell am I?" And from the dark seat beside me the voice answered, slow, flat, gentle like a bedtime prayer. "You're on the road that remembers. The one they warned you never to find." I didn't ask who they were, I already knew, the old-timers. The ones who always said, "Don't ever drive dead routes after midnight." Some roads ain't marked 'cause they don't want to be found. I was on one of those roads now. And, it had plans for me, the statues, or whatever the hell those things were kept standing. Like they'd been waiting centuries just to watch me roll by, and the deeper I went, the taller they got. Some looked human at first glance, broad shoulders, thick necks, stone arms crossed over their chests. But others were wrong, twisted, bent in ways people aren't supposed to bend. One had too many joints in its arms, and another had a head shaped like a bell with no face at all, just deep carvings along the edges that seemed to hum the closer I got. I didn't slow down, I didn't dare. The road was guiding me, or more like holding me the way a river holds driftwood. Every few hundred feet I passed another old marker wooden signs hanging crooked from rusted poles, each one with a single word carved deep like scars. Pay? No. Belong. The one that hit hardest was the last one I saw before the sign stopped altogether. Stay. And the moment I passed it, the CB unit still unplugged let out a shrill burst of static like someone screamed laughing through aluminum foil. I nearly jerked the wheel, but I held firm. My knuckles were so tight they'd gone white, and that damn smell came back again, thicker this time iron and mold and scorched rubber, like death trapped in a basement. Out of nowhere, the trailer behind me shifted. I felt it in my spine, the weight changed like something moved inside. I hadn't been hauling nothing since Salt Lake empty load, but the rear axle dropped an inch, then rose again slow. Something was in there, walking. I hit the switch for the trailer lights, but the fuse must have fried. No response. And in the darkness of that mirrorless cab, I felt more alone than I ever had in my life, except I wasn't. Not really. That presence in the passenger seat, still there. Didn't speak this time, didn't even breathe. But it was starting to lean closer. I could feel it like ice brushing the edge of my face. I bit the inside of my cheek hard enough to taste. Blood just to keep myself from looking. Because something told me if I looked at it now, at this point in the road, it wouldn't just be watching anymore, it'd move. I don't know how I kept driven, instinct maybe? Or maybe the truck was the only thing still recognizing me as human. But then I saw the sign. One final one, metal, bent in the middle, sticking up out of the soil like a bone poking through skin. And in reflective paint, the words that damn near made my heart stop, "Welcome to mile 0, the last turn." That's when the truck started to slow. On its own. When the truck started slowing down on its own, I didn't press the brakes. Didn't touch the clutch. Hell, my foot was still firm on the gas, but it didn't matter because that pedal might as well have been nailed to the floor for all the good. The engine stayed humming low, real low, like it had dropped into some kind of idle I'd never heard before, not mechanical, not natural, just obedient to the road, to whatever was guiding it now. The wheel didn't lock, but it sure didn't feel like I was in control anymore. The cab lights flickered one more time, just enough to light up the interior for half a second. In that half second, I saw something out of the corner of my damn eye. In the passenger seat, not a man, not a woman, not even close. It had a shape, torso, arms, what you might call a head, but it was like it was stitched together from shadows and thoughts and the smell of old blood. Its skin, if you could call it that, looked like burlap soaked in oil, rough and glistening, and I swear I could see faint pulses beneath the surface like veins full of smoke. But its face, God help me, its face was just a flat, stretched out grin that never moved. No eyes, just that grin, not teeth. Just white, painted on maybe. Like a smile something else had put there to make itself look human. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. Because the road did. Beneath the tires, I felt every bump turn into a beat like a heartbeat, like the road itself was alive. And that every inch I traveled was another breath inside its lungs. Ahead of me, the path opened up into a vast black field with no trees. No lines, no horizon. Just one single building standing in the center, a truck stop. Or what looked like one. Neon sign buzzing faintly, read in open, even though there weren't no cars, no rigs, not even a sound from inside. It was the only thing lit up in this whole empty world, and even from 100 yards out, I could tell it was built. For me, the silhouette matched every rundown rest stop I'd ever stopped at between Amarillo and Ely, only this one. Felt old in a different way. Not aged, not abandoned, just timeless. Like it had always been there, waiting for drivers. Like me who ignored the warnings and drove too far, too deep, past roads that didn't want to be remembered. As the truck rolled to a stop out front without me ever touching the brake, the reflection in the side glass leaned close and whispered with my own damn voice, only twisted, "We're home now, driver." And the fuel gauge needle dropped. Too empty, I sat there with the engine humming low, watching that open sign flicker like it was breathing, the letters buzzing real slow in and out like a tired heartbeat. My hands were still on the wheel, but they'd gone numb. Not cold, numb, like my arms had forgotten what they were for. I didn't want to move, but the truck door had other plans. It popped with a soft click, not a violent yank, not a rattle, just a quiet invitation. And that thing beside me, whatever had crawled in without macking a sound, leaned closer like it was waiting to see if I'd accept it. I didn't turn to face it. I couldn't. My eyes were locked on the front of the building. The truck stop looked just like the kind you find out in the middle of nowhere, single set of bathrooms. Busted ice machine outside, a flickering sign hanging by one chain over the door, but something was off. The whole place looked too still, not empty, just frozen. Like time had stopped working there. The glass on the door was clean, too clean, no smudges. No dust, no prints. The kind of clean that don't happen naturally, like someone was waiting on me and cleaned up just for the occasion. Against every bone in my body screaming to stay put, I stepped out of the cab. My boots hit the ground hard, and the second they did, the hum from the truck stopped. Not like I'd shut it off, more like it had stopped caring. I didn't even hear the usual ping of the engine cooling down. It was just dead silent. The air out there didn't move. It didn't feel like air. It was heavy and dry and warm in a way that made my skin crawl, like being wrapped in a motel blanket, ain't been washed in months. I looked around, no road behind me, just black, like the world ended 10 feet past my trailer. Number. Wind, no bugs, not even the sound of my own footsteps crunching. I made my way to the door. As I got closer, I realized the open sign wasn't hanging from the inside like normal. It was embedded in the glass itself, like it was grown into the door. I reached for the handle. Cold metal, real, tangible, familiar, but as soon as I touched it, a sound came from behind me. Boots, steady, measured, a second pair of footsteps on pavement. Slow, not trying to hide. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because in the reflection of the glass, I saw a second version of me standing 20 feet behind. Same jacket, same build, same face. Only it was smiling. I never smile like that. It was waiting for me to open the door. That smile in the reflection wasn't mine. It wore my face. Sure, same creases around the eyes, same line of stubble on the jaw, even the same little burn mark on the collar from when I spilled coffee back in 21, but the eyes were all wrong. Too wide, too still, no life behind them. Just polished glass where soul should be, and the grin, it didn't stop grinning. Like it didn't know how to relax its face, like someone had cut a smile into something that didn't understand. Why people smile in the first place? My hand hovered over the handle for what felt like a lifetime, and I swear I could hear the glass breathing. The air inside the place was pressing up against the door like it was alive and waiting. My gut told me plain, this wasn't no rest stop. This was an invitation. But something stronger than sense pulled my fingers closed around the handle anyway. It clicked down easier than it should have, no resistance, like it wanted to be opened. The door swung inward slow, creaking just once like an old man waking up from a long nap. The smell hit first, not gas station funk or stale coffee and floor cleaner like you'd expect. No, this was different. It smelled like dirt. Deep dirt, grave dirt, and something underneath that. Like rusted metal soaked in time. The lights were on inside, but dim. Yellow and flickery, like gas lamps, even though I didn't see any bulbs. The aisles were lined with shelves, but none of them had brands I recognized. The snack bags were full of something dry and dark, labels written in jagged red ink that bled through the plastic. The coolers hummed low, but when I looked inside, there weren't no soda or bottled water, just rows of unlabeled black glass bottles, each with a single white tag hanging from the neck. No prices, just numbers that didn't make sense. 13.7, 99.1, 0.0. The whole place buzzed faintly, like electricity under your skin, and then I heard it, footsteps, not mine. Not the echo of my boots. These were softer, bare, wet, slapping. Gently on the tile like someone walking barefoot through a dream. I turned toward the counter, slow as ever, and there was a man standing behind the register, if you could call him that. He wore a trucker hat low over his face, greasy hair peeking out the sides, and his skin looked like it hadn't been exposed to sunlight since the highway was built. He smiled without teeth. "You made it," he rasped. "Not many do." I opened my mouth to speak, but he raised a hand palm up, leathery, trembling like an old machine, and pointed to the back of the store. "Your rig's not done driven, but you gotta walk the next mile." I swallowed hard. "What happens at the end of it?" He just chuckled, voice dry as dust. "Driver, if you see an end, you took the wrong road." I didn't ask him any more questions. What was the point? His answers weren't gonna be the kind I'd understand. Not out here, not on this stretch of reality that didn't belong to men. So I nodded slow and stepped past the counter, the air getting colder with every inch I moved toward the back wall. There weren't no back door, just a long black curtain hanging from ceiling to floor. swaying slightly like there was a breeze back there even though the rest of the store felt dead and airtight. I looked back once, just once, and the man behind the counter was gone. No sound, no footsteps, not even dust stirred. Just vanished like he'd only ever existed to give me the next direction. I stared at that curtain for what felt like hours. You ever stand somewhere and feel like the second you step forward, you'll stop being you? That was what it felt. Like the world on the other side of that fabric didn't know my name and didn't care to learn it. I reached out. My fingers brushed the edge, and it felt warm. Not the fabric, the air behind it. Warm like breath, I pushed through. Number. Resistance. Just blackness. No floor. No walls. Just fog stretching out in every direction, glowing faintly from underneath with that same sick orange light I'd seen out on the road, and stretching forward, a path. Dirt again. Same red soil. Same claw marks, hoof prints, drag lines. But this one was narrow, just wide enough for a man to walk. It didn't turn, didn't bend. Just went straight forward, split in the fog like a scar. I walked, step after step, boots crunching into earth that felt softer than it should have. Then, like I was walking on skin stretched over gravel, the fog moved with me, whispering just at the edge of hearing, my name, my voice. Voices of folks I hadn't seen in years, dead drivers, old dispatchers my daddy calling me from. The porch when I was a kid, all mixed up, all warped like they were being spoken through a mouth that wasn't built right. I kept going. My legs were heavy. Like each step was being taxed by something unseen, like the air itself was trying to drag me backward. I don't know how long I walked, minutes, hours, maybe a whole damn night. But eventually I saw something rising out of the fog ahead. A figure, human shape. Standing dead center in the path, not moving. As I got closer, my stomach twisted because it was me. Standing there, same boots, same jacket, same hands. Hanging at the sides, but the eyes weren't mine. They were hollow, burning with a dull red glow like coals buried in ash. And the mouth was open, not speaking, just waiting. The copy of me raised its arm slowly and pointed to my chest. "Your route ends here, driver," it said. But the voice wasn't mine anymore. It was the road's. I don't know how long I stood there facing myself. No, not myself, the thing wearing me. It just stared, eyes hollow, that dull ember glow, flickering in sockets that had no business being alive. The worst part wasn't the face or the posture or even the voice. It was the breathing. This damn thing was breathing in perfect rhythm with me. I inhaled, it inhaled. I held. My breath it held too. Like it wasn't just mimicking me, but tethered to me, like every move I made was keeping it alive. And then it took a step forward, just one step. Boots hitting the red dirt without a sound. That's when I noticed it wasn't leaving any footprints. The road accepted me, dug into me with every step, but it rejected this thing. No print. No pressure. Like it was floating just above the surface, not quite allowed to touch it. That scared me more than anything else. 'Cause if it wasn't real, if it wasn't grounded, then what was it doing here? And why did it look like it was waiting for me to decide something? I said, "What do you want?" And the thing smiled. Same slow, too wide grin from before, like its face was stretching to make the shape, not used to the motion. "I want you," it said, flat as dead radio. "Your miles. Your hands, your place behind the wheel." I shook my head. "This route's mine." The grin dropped, not to a frown, just gone. Like someone wiped it clean off. The thing tilted its head, bird-like, curious. "You've already given most of yourself," it whispered. "Back there, every time you ignored the wrong turn. Every time you drove past the signs. You traded distance for pieces." And I remembered the missing hours. The time I couldn't account for. The empty logs I'd chalked up to fatigue. The roads I'd taken because the GPS flickered and said rerouting, all of it. Wasn't a mistake. I'd been feeding this thing without knowing every lonely mile. Every silent stretch. Every night past midnight. That's how it got stronger. The thing took another step. This time, I felt it. Pressure in my chest. Like it was pushing inward with thought alone. "Let me drive," it said, softer now. "You rest." My hand twitched toward my jacket pocket reflex. I didn't carry a weapon, never felt the need. But in that moment, I would have killed. For a piece of cold iron, the road rumbled faintly beneath us, like it was listening, like it wanted me to give in. But I didn't. I clenched my jaw, took one step forward. My boots sank into the dirt like before real, solid mine. I looked that thing in the face and said what no other driver had ever said on this mile. "You ain't talking the wheel." The second those words left my mouth, the fog around us collapsed in like lungs sucking in their final breath. The sky, or whatever black void hung above, shuddered. Not with sound, not with thunder, but with a low, throbbing pressure that made my ears ring and my molars ache. That thing standing in front of me, my shadow, my reflection. The ghost of every lonely mile I'd ever driven, it didn't flinch. But something behind it did. The dirt road cracked like old leather and hands began to rise. Not arms, just hands. Some wearing tattered gloves, some burnt, some twitching, some too big. All reaching up from underneath the surface like the road itself had started to remember the drivers it swallowed and was trying to cough them back up. I stood my ground, fist tight, breath shallow. The copy of me tilted its head again and said in that dry, stolen voice, "You say I can't. Take the wheel, but I already am. Look around, driver. This is your road now." And I realized it wasn't lying, the rust-colored dirt. The way the air smelled like burnt rubber and coffee dregs. The faint hum of an idling engine that hadn't existed until I showed up. This mile wasn't just a trap, it was mine, built from my choices. My regrets. My silence on all those dead routes where I should have turned back, but didn't. It grinned again. "One last turn," it whispered, stepping toward me. I could feel it pulling at my ribs, like a tow chain wrapped around my spine. "You ride, I drive, you rest forever, just like the others." I don't know where the strength came from, maybe. From all the times I'd watched the sun rise through a cracked windshield, or all the late-night coffees I drank to stay awake while the world slept, but I shoved my foot forward and stomped hard into the dirt. I felt the road respond, not just beneath me, but in me, like it remembered I still had say-so over this wheel. "Then we make a choice," I said, voice shacking but clear. "One of us walks the rest, the other disappears." The fog pulsed. The hands twitched. And the shadow smiled like I'd given it exactly what it wanted. "Deal," it lunged. No warning, no scream, just blur and speed. But I didn't back down. I charged it, feeling the force of every damn mile I'd survived boiling in my chest. When we collided, it was like hitting a wall of cold tar, but I held firm. We grappled, twisting and struggling, dirt flying, hands grabbing, breath ripping from my lungs. And in that tangle of soul and shadow, I shouted one last thing into its hollow, grinning face. "This rig don't move without me driven it." I didn't know if I was fighting with my fists or with whatever part of me still remembered the sky. But every second I held on to that thing felt like trying to wrestle with a memory that didn't want to fade. It wasn't flesh. It wasn't. Even solid half the time, just slipping between forms, bones made of smoke, breath colder than steel, and that damn smile stretching across a face that wouldn't stay still. But I kept shouting, grunting, holding on, and I could feel it starting to lose shape, like it was built from all the moments I'd spent alone on the highway. And the second I stopped fearing those nights, it started to crack. The fog pulsed harder now, pushing in like pressure from the deepest part of the ocean, and the road beneath us screamed, not loud, not sound, just that bone-deep vibration that makes your stomach flip and your ears pop. The hands rising from the dirt started clawing upward, but they weren't reaching for me anymore, they were reaching for it. The shadow version of me let out a sound like tires skidding on wet pavement, a squeal and a hiss all twisted together, and I knew I'd struck something real inside it. I shouted again, louder this time, "You don't get the wheel." And as I did, the fog behind it tore open, like the world itself had split at the seams. Through it, I saw the cab of my truck. Parked, idle, lights dim but flickering. My keys still in the ignition. That twisted little smile on the dash bobblehead my kid gave me still nodding. That was my seat, my rig, my road. The shadow flinched, arms trembling, form flickering between my face and 100 others. I saw flashes of every lonely trucker it had stolen, faces worn by time, frozen in fear, mouths open and silent. Screams as their skin peeled into wind. I clenched my fists and threw one last punch, not at its face, at its chest. Right where the heart should be. My hand sank deep, and I swear it felt like punching through wet velvet, and as I did, I yelled, "I'm not done driven." The thing convulsed, the smile finally cracked, and then it shattered like glass caught in a hailstorm. The hands grabbed it, pulled it down into the road, screaming, laughing. Whatever it was doing, I didn't look back. I ran straight for the hole in the fog. My legs were lead, lungs burning, boots barely touching the ground as that orange glowing world collapsed behind me like a bad memory finally getting buried where it belonged. I dove through. I hit the seat hard, lungs burning, heart jackhammering like I'd just run 100 miles with a full trailer chained to my back. And for a second I just sat there, hands on the wheel, eyes wide, throat so dry it felt cracked. The cab smelled like diesel and stale air freshener again. That pine tree dangling off the rearview mirror, half faded and swinging slow, never looked so comforting. I reached down, touching the worn leather of the seat, the edge of the cup holder with the crusted coffee ring still in it, and the gear shift cool and real beneath my fingers. The dash lights flickered on. 3:01 a.m. The clock was ticking again, like time had remembered me. The radio popped with faint static, just enough to make me flinch, but it didn't speak. No voices this time. Just dead air and the familiar hum of nothing. I looked out the windshield. The road ahead was black and stretching forward like it always had, flat, quiet, lonely, but it was real. I could see the reflectors again. Could hear the buzz of the engine. Could feel the vibration of the idling rig waiting for my next move. I reached for the key still in the ignition. I didn't remember turning it. Hell, I didn't remember ever stopping. But the rig was here, and I was in it. I gave the key a twist just to feel something. The engine purred back to life like it never left. That sound, that low, steady hum, I almost cried right there in the cab, but then I saw it. In the side mirror, a shape, standing just outside. The glow of my rear lights, tall, thin, still. I didn't move, didn't blink. Just stared into that mirror like a man looking at his own grave from a distance. It wasn't walking, wasn't reaching, just standing, watching, like it wanted me to know I hadn't imagined it. That some part of it did make it through, or maybe it never had to follow. Maybe it was always there. I slammed the mirror inward, breaking the line of sight, grabbed the shifter, slammed it into gear. Rubber peeled against the asphalt like a scream, and I tore out of that stretch of road like hell itself was ridden my bumper. I didn't care what direction I was headed anymore, north, south, off route. I just knew I had to move, keep moving. Because out here on these dead stretches, it ain't the road that remembers. It's the things that live under it, and sometimes they ride along, quiet, waiting, smiling. I didn't stop driven. Not for gas, not for food, not even when the clock hit dawn and the sky started bleeding orange over the hills. I just kept my foot on the pedal and my eyes locked straight ahead like if I blinked, that thing, whatever it was, might be sitting in the seat beside me again, grinning like it never left. Hours passed, maybe more. I only noticed because the fuel light finally kicked on, and even then I hesitated, like stopping would give it time to catch up. But eventually the tank was screaming empty, and I saw a little 2-pump gas stop up ahead, one of those off-brand ones with a broken ice chest out front and a soda machine from the 90s still humming. I rolled in slow, engine coughing like it was running on fumes and fear. Everything looked normal. Too normal. That's what got under my skin. The cashier inside looked bored, staring at her phone behind the counter. Nobody else in sight. The radio was playing a country song. Real low, I stepped inside, hands shacking, trying not to look like a man who just crawled out of the edge of hell. Grabbed a coffee, a pack of jerky, walked up to the register. She scanned the items, chewing gum like nothing existed outside that glass door. Then she paused, looked up at me, real slow. Like her brain was catching up to something it didn't. Like, rough night? She asked. I didn't answer. Just nodded once. She stared a second longer, then tapped the screen and said, "Pump 2, but, you got something stuck?" I blinked. "Stuck?" She pointed to my chest. I looked down. My shirt. Right there on the fabric, smeared over the logo, was a black handprint. Not grease, not oil. Charcoal, burnt into the fibers like someone had grabbed me mid-torch. My throat closed. I hadn't noticed it when I left the cab. Didn't remember being touched, but it was there, clear as day. 5 long fingers, thumb low, palm wide. It wasn't mine. I paid and walked back to the truck, trying not to lose my nerve. Fueled up, climbed back in. Sat for a long moment, staring at the windshield. And that's when I saw it again off to the far edge of the lot. A tree line, empty, still, but carved into the bark of the closest tree was a symbol, a spiral, deep, jagged, burnt in. The same one I saw carved on the ground back at mile 0. I thought I left it behind. Thought I beat it, but out here. Some roads don't end. They follow. I told myself I was just imagining it. The handprint, the symbol in the trees. The reflection in the window that sometimes moved just a beat slower than I did. I told myself it was sleep deprivation, a leftover hallucination from whatever the hell happened that night, like my brain had been fried trying to comprehend something it was never built to see. But that excuse wore thin real fast when the road started speaking again, not in words this time, in patterns, in detours, in silence where there shouldn't be any. I started tacking jobs that kept me on the grid, sticking to major interstates, refusing any night hauls. I gave dispatch every excuse in the book: bad fuel economy, brake issues, sleep disorder, just to avoid Rollin between midnight and 3. I figured if I just stayed out of that window, I'd be safe. I'd bought my way out of that place. But the road? It doesn't work like that. A few weeks later, I was driven through Kansas, broad daylight, clear skies, no reason to worry. My GPS rerouted construction ahead. It said nothing unusual. I followed the detour. 20 minutes in, I realized the road had no name. The signage disappeared, no mile markers. Just straight pavement and fields. I turned around. The exit I'd come off of? Gone, like the whole off-ramp had been wiped off the map. I stopped the truck, put it in park, stepped outside and stared at the horizon. The wind didn't move. The fields didn't sway. The sun looked dimmer than it had been 10 minutes before. And then I heard it soft at first. That same hum I remembered from the other side. The same low mechanical groan, like breath inside an engine. And I knew I hadn't escaped. I'd delayed. Like a toll I hadn't paid yet was finally coming due. The rig creaked behind me even though it was off. And there, in the reflection of my chrome tank, I saw it, just for a second. That smile, wide, too white, too flat, just standing there. Beside me, didn't move, didn't speak. But its message was clear. The road remembers every mile you've taken. And sooner or later, it comes to collect.